Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. Every year, USA Today ranks Seattle near the top of its list of fittest cities in America. Last year, we were ranked second behind San Francisco. So maybe it shouldn't be that surprising that last summer, 20,000 people in our fair city entered a triathlon for the first time. Triathlon is actually a fairly new sport. It began in the 1920s in France, and at that point it was known as Les Trois Sports. And it was fairly simple. It involved a 3-kilometer run, a 12-kilometer bike ride, and a swim across the Marne Channel and back. It took 50 years before modern triathlon really took hold, and here's how it went. There was a group of Navy SEALs on Oahu who wanted to test their fitness to the ultimate. And so there were 15 of them, these SEALs and their friends, and they thought, let's put together this amazing race. And it involved a 2.5-mile ocean swim, a bike ride around the perimeter of the island of Oahu, which is 112 miles, and a marathon run. That year, there were 15 people that entered the race, and 12 of them finished. The following year, 108 people entered what has become Ironman Hawaii. And now, tens of thousands of people from around the world every year vie for the 2,000 spots at the Hawaiian Ironman. Fortunately for those of us who have day jobs, there are lots of other ways to participate in triathlons. There are 4 main categories of triathlon. The first is the sprint category, and it's a fairly manageable race for weekend warriors and people who are fit. It involves a half-mile swim, a 12-mile bike ride, and a 5K run. One of the best ways to do a triathlon in Seattle is to enter the Seafair Triathlon, which is a sprint of those distances. But the legendary sprint triathlon in Seattle is called the Danskin. It takes place in the Seward Park neighborhood of Seattle on the 3rd weekend in August every year. This year will be the 20th time the Danskin is run in Seattle, and it's an all-women's race, and 5,000 women from our area enter that race every year. And it's so popular that the race sells out online in a matter of 3 or 4 hours. For more seasoned triathletes, there's the opportunity to take place in a standard distance triathlon, or an Olympic distance, and it's roughly double the distance of a sprint. And it involves a 0.9-mile swim, and a 25-mile bike ride, and a 10K run. Triathlon became an Olympic sport in the year 2000 in Sydney. The gold medal winner for men was a person named Simon Whitfield, who lives in Vancouver, BC. He was 25 years old. It took him just under 2 hours to complete the distance. The women's gold medalist was Brigitte McMahon from Switzerland, and it took her 20 minutes longer than it took Simon to finish the race. The rubber starts meeting the road in triathlon at the half-iron distance, which is the 3rd main category of triathlons. It entails a 1.2-mile swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and a half-marathon run, or 13.1 miles. A person training appropriately for a half-Ironman distance really needs about 4 months to prepare, and each week you spend between 12 and 20 hours preparing for your half-Ironman race. But the holy grail in the triathlon community is the Ironman. There are dozens of Ironman distance races that take place throughout the world every year, and most of them are qualifying events for the Hawaiian Ironman. So that's the opportunity for folks who are really serious about the sport to qualify and then travel to Hawaii that 3rd weekend in October every year and do the ultimate test of fitness. As you might imagine, triathletes hate chaos. Triathletes are, generally speaking, control freaks. And so a typical triathlete would do everything within their power to prepare for race day. They would take good care of their nutrition. They would execute a training plan and be very meticulous about it. They would take good care of their bodies. But all the planning in the world can't change the fact that there can be chaos on race day. Something as simple as foggy goggles, or a broken shoelace, or a little shard of glass in the road that wiggles its way up into your bike tire and causes a flat can change everything. But one of the best ways to help mitigate that chaos is to have the right equipment. At the heart of the triathlon is an area called the transition area. And it's essentially where athletes will bring their bikes and then also stage their stuff so that the costume changes that take place throughout the course of the triathlon occur in the transition area. And I'd like to show you a little bit about how triathlon transition works. most triathletes spend the entire race in a single layer of clothing that they add to and subtract from throughout the course of the event. I'm wearing a typical triathlon singlet. It's comfortable to swim in. It also wicks water away from my skin in the bike and the run. And it has the great advantage of pockets. So the pockets in the back, I can put my chapstick, a snack, a spare tire, anything I think I might want throughout the course of the race. So most, in fact, all sanctioned triathlons begin with the swim event. Now, it's not required, but most triathletes like to use a wetsuit during the swim. Now this is a typical triathlon wetsuit. It's made of neoprene, and it offers the benefit, of course, of keeping you warm, and especially when you're competing in areas like ours, it's really nice to be wearing a wetsuit because it's a much more comfortable swim for most participants. The other advantage of a wetsuit is the buoyancy. Now, buoyancy is great in a triathlon for a number of reasons. One of them is that it helps you swim faster. Most triathletes can take about a minute off a mile in their swim time when they're wearing a wetsuit compared to wearing just a regular swimsuit. Also, the buoyancy makes your legs float, so you don't have to use them to kick as hard, so you've got more strength in your legs for the bike and the run. As well, the buoyancy in a wetsuit can, if you're an inexperienced swimmer trying to do a triathlon, can very well save your life. The other accessories needed on the triathlon swim is a swim cap for warmth and for visibility in case you get in trouble, and goggles for easy navigation and for comfort on your eyes. Following the swim, a triathlete will come back into the transition area and prepare for the bike part of the course. Now, this is kind of a chaotic part of the triathlon because what a person needs to do is shuck themselves out of their wetsuit and get into their stuff to get onto the bike ride. And some of the key components that are needed on the bike are, of course, cycling shoes, which most triathletes like to use with the type that have clip-in pedals that clip directly onto your pedals on your bike, because it makes the pedaling much more comfortable and more powerful by using clip-on pedals. Certainly, a cycling helmet, critical to safety, of course, as well as it's always required in all triathlons to wear one. If you're on your bike without a helmet, you could be disqualified. And I like to wear sunglasses for eye protection and aesthetics. I'd like to show you a little bit about my triathlon bike and the difference between this bike and a typical road bike. A couple of things are going on here. This bike is, the frame of this bike is made 100% carbon fiber, which is a flexible, strong material that is also very lightweight. The frame of the bike weighs 4 pounds. With tires on this bike, it weighs 17. You'll notice too that the top tube of this bike is longer than that of a typical road bike. That allows the athlete to flatten their body out and get into more aerodynamic position, and also saves your quadriceps and your hamstrings for the run. You'll notice too that this has a different handlebar set than a typical road bike, and this again allows for that aerodynamic position, and also this bike shifts, all the gear shifting takes place up top here. So again, the athlete can stay in the aerodynamic position throughout the course of the ride. The least technical, but probably the most important thing on this bike is this simple water bottle. In here I have a cocktail that includes 350 calories of protein and carbohydrates, as well as an electrolyte tablet for liquid and fluid replenishment throughout the course of the bike ride. Fueling on your bike is the easiest time to do it during a triathlon because you can't really take food on while you swim, and it's also harder to do on the run because of all the impact of your body onto the road. All right, so the last part of the triathlon, the last transition, is from the bike to the run. It's fairly simple. It means bringing your bike back into the transition area and changing your shoes. So out of the bike shoes and into the running shoes. The typical triathlon running shoes are every bit like the running shoes that you might use for other activities. The only real difference is that there is the option to use a lace lock, which enables you to secure your shoes to your feet without having to take the time to tie them. But the best part of any triathlon, of course, is the finish line. And even though chaos theory has won the day in my 12-year and 100-plus triathlon career of doing races, more often than I've won any race, I keep coming back for more because I like to be part of the reason that USA Today thinks that Seattle is one of the fittest cities in America. Thank you.